Hello everybody and welcome to another video. And today we're going to be revisiting a band. I think I've checked them out maybe 3 or 4 times before. A band called Tethra. Now a day or two ago they actually released a new track called Dying Signal. So I thought I would check it out. Now I've covered this band before, like I said. There's no actual lyrics available for the track at this time. But it is a lyric video, and I do actually have a brief description of what the track itself is about. So we'll jump into the track, give that a listen, and then we'll discuss the actual meaning behind the song afterwards, like I normally do. So, yeah, without any further ado, I think we'll jump straight into the track and see what we have. So this is Dying Signal by Tethra.
Compared to
And there we go. That was Dying Signal by Tethra. And, you know, as I said, I've actually covered them 3 or 4 times before. And they seem to get progressively better with every new track I hear. When I first listened to them, I was a bit sort of unsure. You know, the clean vocals were really quite... They felt a bit off. And the overall sort of feel of the song just didn't really resonate that well with me. But as I've listened to more and more of the tracks, as I've listened to the newer and newer material, they're getting sort of progressively better and better. And, you know, I'm really enjoying their music. And, you know, this track is fantastic, and it actually does have quite a strong, powerful meaning behind it that I can really appreciate. And it's actually something I've covered on several other tracks on this channel before. And what I've got here, it's a quote from the lead singer of the band, and it says, "Dying Signal's lyrics are a metaphor for the progressive deterioration of human relationships in modern society. The models imposed by TV, social media, and consumerism brought to excess, taking away the ability to stop and reflect, because nowadays we are so also interconnected that each of us expects almost immediate feedback from the other. And for this, it's not always easy to be able to argue properly about a personal opinion. Sometimes it's easier to shout your own reasons without listening to others." You know, and it makes perfect sense because, you know, the way social media and all these sort of things affect our lives these days, you know, we sort of expect like an immediate reaction to everything we do and say, but similarly, we're so we're isolating ourselves at the same time. Like, you know, you go to a restaurant with a group of friends, and everybody's sitting there staring at their phones rather than talking to each other directly. You know, everybody's so busy taking photographs of their meals to show on social media. You know, what the hell is that about? You know, that never made sense to me. It's like, who cares what you're having for dinner? No one wants to see it. You know, and, you know, I've seen, like, couples on a date, you know, and they're sitting at a table and both of them are staring at their phones, completely ignoring each other. It's like, what's the point in going on a date with someone if you're just going to sit there talking to each other over your phones rather than talking face to face? You know, and what it said there, you know, we can't have conversations about personal opinions anymore. If you make an opinion on something, someone immediately shouts you down, or, you know, they just either block you, ignore you, they never speak to you again. You know, we can't have conversations or debates anymore. People will just keep shouting and shouting and shouting until they've made their point, until you back down because they think you are wrong, whether you are wrong or not. You know, and if you have an opinion on something these days, everybody is offended by everything. You know, it's going to come to the point where, you know, you're not even going to be able to say, like, you know, the colour of the wall behind me is green, and somehow that's going to offend someone. You know, it's getting to that point where the stupidest and simplest thing is offending everybody, and it's all because of this increase in social media and, you know, the fear-mongering from TVs and stuff like that. I mean, the absolute bullshit the news pumps out at the moment is unbelievable. You know, you're watching, for example, you watch things like the riots at the Capitol that happened earlier this year. You know, you got one channel saying, you know, this is what's happening, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And then you've got another channel saying it's the other side's fault. You know, one channel's telling the truth, the other spreading vicious lies. And the thing is, people are going to believe the vicious lies as well as there are going to be people that believe the truth. And it's all this sort of conflict of interest. And rather than actually sitting there and listening to reason, people will stolidly stick by whatever their side says is the right answer, despite whether or not there is enough evidence to prove that fact or not. You know, something can be proved to be completely erroneous, complete falsehood, but these people will stick by it so vehemently because they've heard it on the news, and of course the media never lie to us, it's becoming impossible to actually have a dialogue with people these days. So, I see what the song's saying, I like what the song's saying, and like I said, we've covered many songs before that have, covered similar subjects. So it's quite a strong, powerful, and current and important message that's being portrayed here. And like I said, it's a great song, brilliant performance. The clean vocal performance was much better than a lot of the earlier stuff I've heard by this band. But fantastic piece of music. I really like it, and I really like the message it was putting across. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. If anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so by all means. You can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a massive help to me, since all of the content I create for this channel gets immediately demonetized because I'm using material from other artists. I see absolutely nothing from any of the content that I create, which is a little bit frustrating, because I put all the effort into making these videos and I get absolutely nothing out of it, which is quite annoying. There is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue, should you so desire. There is an option on how frequently you can do that. I think it's restricted to once a month. That's just to be fair to people who suggest tracks through more regular means, such as YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook comments, because otherwise, these people wouldn't get they wouldn't get a look in. But the option is there if you would like to have your suggestion done very quickly. If you do suggest tracks through more regular means like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, do know that it could take me a while to get around to your suggestions, since I do get suggested a lot of new tracks every single day. That my list grows faster than I can record the videos, but I do write down every suggestion I get, so it'll get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get around to it, and I couldn't honestly tell you how long it might take to get around to that, because I am currently trying to recompile my list from past comments after having lost my list when my computer decided to kill itself. So, but I do write them down, so we'll get done eventually. It just might take a while. Also, MetalHead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose goal is to put an end to hate crimes. And one of the main facets of that is hate crimes involving people of the alternative culture. And that is something I believe in very, very strongly, because it's something I've had to deal with myself. And it's something that very widely gets ignored. It gets sort of brushed under the carpet and treated as no big deal. And that's something that really needs to change, because every day, all around the world, people from the alternative community are getting violently attacked just purely for the fact that they listen to alternative music or wear alternative fashion. And we're not just talking about getting names shouted at them from across the street or getting shoulder rammed as they walk down the road. No, we're talking about real violent crimes where people are getting brutally attacked and more often than not getting hospitalized with severe injuries, sometimes broken limbs, and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries. But this happens all the time, but we never hear a thing about it. The last time there was any widespread talk about this was 15 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently attacked and brutally beaten by a group of 5 or 6 people. They were beaten, punched, kicked, knocked to the ground, and had their heads stamped on so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he thankfully survived the attack. He was in a coma for around about a week, maybe a little bit longer, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, she was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and was beaten to death just purely for the fact that she listened to alternative music and wore alternative clothing. And like I said, this happened 13, 14 years ago. And it was all over the news at the time, as well it should have been. But since that happened, we've not heard a single thing similar. We've not heard a single mention of another attack like that. But in that time, there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar attacks just like that. But nothing's been said because no one's died. And that's unacceptable. Just because there was no loss of life doesn't mean it shouldn't be spoken about. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die before something like this gets spoken about. You know, every day we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism. We hear these every single day. From the most violent and heinous of these crimes, where someone is murdered because of the colour of their skin, their religious beliefs, or their sexual identity, down to the most petty of these crimes, where some entitled white woman is calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. You know, we hear these every single day, every facet of these on every media platform, all the time. We hear these. But we don't hear about these people from the alternative community getting violently and brutally attacked just because of their taste in music. And I've had people argue that it's not a hate crime. It is. It is the very definition of a hate crime. If you are attacking someone because you hate a certain aspect about them, whether it is the colour of their skin, their religious beliefs, their sexual identity, their taste in music, their ability or disability, whatever it is, if you are attacking someone because you hate an aspect about that person, that is a hate crime. You know, and why this gets so widely ignored, I don't know. It makes no sense to me, you know, and it's been going on for decades. It's been going on for longer than I've been alive. You know, we hear all these other things all the time, but we don't hear anything about this. And I don't know why. It's like people just don't seem to care because it doesn't involve them. You know, but as soon as someone dies from it, we hear about it. And everybody goes, oh, what a tragedy, it should never have happened in the first place. But then, as with all things, it will sort of fade away into the distance and everybody forgets it again. No one cares. Because no one ever speaks about it. It doesn't get the attention it needs or deserves. You know, only a couple of years ago, a young girl in Scotland was running a charity gig. And during the night, she had to go back to her home for whatever reason. Her home was a 5-minute walk away from the venue. And in the time between her leaving the venue and getting to her home, she was brutally and violently attacked twice by the same group of people who, similarly to Sophie Lancaster, they beat her, kicked her, punched her, knocked her to the ground, and beat her more. Twice they did this. Thankfully, a passing taxi driver put an end to the attack. He didn't stop to see if she was okay. He just buggered off. She didn't get help until she got back to the venue to where her friends were. But this wasn't in the news. This was like, I could walk to Scotland from where I live now, and I didn't hear a goddamn thing about this. This wasn't in the news. I didn't hear about this until I heard it from a friend who happened to be friends with the person it happened to. You know, and, you know, why wasn't this in the news? You know, if that taxi driver hadn't stopped and put an end to that attack, who's to say that that young girl wouldn't have ended up in the same condition as Sophie Lancaster? Who's to say she wouldn't have ended up hospitalised in a coma, having been brutally beaten just because of her taste in music? It was sort of just brushed aside and ignored. And that is unacceptable. That needs to change. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is a very real problem. You know, this sort of thing goes on every single day, all over the place. But it just sort of gets brushed aside and ignored. And by ignoring it, we're letting people think that they can get away with it and do whatever they want. But that cannot be allowed to happen. You know, the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, they don't want to see this sort of thing happen again. They don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they had to watch their daughter slowly die over the course of 2 weeks because of the small-minded actions of a group of people who just couldn't accept the idea that not everybody likes the same thing. You know, everybody has the right to be an individual, and nobody should have to be persecuted just because they have a different taste in clothes or music. It needs to change. It needs to stop. Because it's only a matter of time before what happened to Sophie Lancaster happens again. And we absolutely cannot allow that to happen. It should never be allowed to happen again. It should never have happened in the first place. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is, because they can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it's a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands, maybe even that one, you know, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff over there. You know, the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
I'm weak.